hall, and ours had done its service. I mean, it had been a strong warrior for years and years and years, and it just gotten to the point where we needed a new one. And in researching possibilities, Mr. Becker found a piano for us to look at, and we did, and we just weren't able to make the commitment at that point. And I opened my email last week, and there was an email from Hillary Chen, the owner of the piano, saying, "My husband and I have decided that we want to donate this to the Danville schools." So I see lots of central office people beaming because this has gone round and round and round. And it certainly is the best choice. And if you don't mind, I'm going to actually ask Lee Jefferson, who's the chair of our new Friends of the Arts Committee, to read just a little bit of a letter, the donation letter from Mrs. Chen and her husband.
One of the things they wanted to make sure to come across is this is a piano that's been owned by 2 different families, each for 10 years, and it's still in great condition. They didn't want to be the spotlight of this gift, they wanted the gift itself. And one of the big things I like from their letter is, "This piano has already fulfilled 2 people's childhood dreams. I hope its beautiful tone will continue to fulfill dreams of anyone who hears it and plays with it." And I think we can be rest assured that this is going to fulfill a lot of childhood dreams for years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just want to interject. This started in October, and it was interesting, the idea of the grand piano being replaced, and so I'm kind of a online research nut, and found several options, and this piano was in Lexington, and they were asking $8,000 for this piano. So, I mean, it's a legitimate, wonderful gift that this family has given to this school. Mrs. Chen has moved to San Francisco and has taken a job there, and her husband will be following as soon as UK is out. So when that wonderful email came that she wanted, and her husband wanted to donate this to our school system, how could you turn it down? And it's actually been evaluated by a prominent piano company. It's worth every penny that they were asking, and so for the fact, and more, actually more, and actually for the fact now that they wanted to donate it to our school system, and also it just lends itself right on top of that Kennedy Center for the Arts. I mean, this has been a fantastic 3 or 4 weeks. So anyways, to the Chen family from the Danville School Board, thank you, and hopefully we'll be in contact with Hillary, I know, soon, and then it's all going to be done through the foundation.
And I just wanted to add a quick comment. Jane alluded to it downstairs. The foundation is now working with Lee and the Friends of the Arts so that any fundraising they do can come through the foundation. It cuts out a little red tape of dealing with the school board, nothing against the school board obviously, but it is a charitable mechanism through which people can make donations to support not only arts programming but other programming in the school system. So we're happy to be the recipients and turn right around and put this fine instrument in Gravely where it belongs.
Thank you. No.
Okay, next on the agenda are board member comments. Do we have board members? Mr. Smiley?
I have just 2 brief comments, actually quotes from the Advocate Messenger newspaper. Elaine Wilson-Reddy, a professional educator and strong advocate for Danville schools, did a wonderful article last week, and it pertains to some of the information we're going to be talking about in this meeting. Basically, she said, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Basic hypothesis was that humans have basic needs that must be met before development could occur. His basic principles of development were psychological needs: food, water, sleep, and shelter. Our teachers need more help in getting their students the basics, like food, sleep, and safety. I watch and listen to teachers agonize over their students' lives. The easy thing to do is watch from the outside, criticize, complain, and pile on. Teachers are not the enemy. They are our community's heroes and should be treated as such. And my compliments to Lane Wilson Reddy. I really think she hit the hammer on the head there. I believe that teachers really are our heroes. The last one I have is even shorter. It's by a gentleman here in the room, Phil Osborne. He's our executive director of Danville Schools Education Foundation. And his quote is right on target also. Food insecurity is a reality in this community, like medical and dental care, mental health efforts, family support systems, and every childhood development impact a child's ability to learn, grow, and thrive. We all have to do our part at every opportunity. Thank you.
Anybody else? Glenn?
This afternoon at 5:30, I attended the Danville City Commission regular meeting. They had a proclamation recognizing the John W. Bates Middle School Academic Team Champions. And interesting enough, this team will attend 2 national events. One in June, it will be in Chicago, and approximately 12 students will be attending. Bates Middle School is the only middle school in Kentucky to be a champion. Mr. Dr. Murray. And Mr. Carney has been doing this for 25 years. And how he harnesses that energy, those kids, for that young, is truly amazing. And he's got to they're going, well, I know one event's in Chicago, I don't know what the other one is, but I know one of them going to Chicago, Illinois in June. So those students at John W. Bates Middle School are to be commended for their efforts and their winning efforts. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bob. Any other board members? All right, well, we're going to move on to our superintendent comments.
Okay, thank you. As always, you have in your e-meeting attachments under my comments, you have my monthly calendar and my update on the leadership standards. And as you'll note, the sheet with the updates on the leadership standards, I have highlighted the items that are new that I have added in this month. Also, as a reminder, we do have a special call board meeting on May the 6th at 5 p.m. for my capstone, which is the final piece of new superintendent training that I have been attending all year with KASA and for a KDE requirement. Just a quick update on some sports. We have spring sports definitely moving along. Baseball is off to a really great start. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. They're right now running with 9-2, and they're ranked as high as 4th in our state. They're playing Lexington Christian tonight for a chance to play in the All-Age State Tournament. Softball got 2 big wins earlier this month, and they're making steady improvements. Track's doing well, and they're gearing up for regionals. Tennis team had some good wins also this season, and our middle school baseball and softball teams are improving, and middle school soccer is also doing really, really well. So just wanted to give a quick update there. And I have one last, and I know we have a long agenda, so I won't take too much time, but one last announcement. Some of the Danville schools, individuals at Hogsett, and Suzanne Farmer was really instrumental in working with this, connected with community members to apply for one of 10 slots at a school readiness summit. And we were awarded one of those 10 slots. At that summit, of course, we'll have our expenses paid. It is a one-day summit. And we have a cross-section team that we have got together, and Suzanne was instrumental in working on this, that will go to this summit, and we will work on really what can we do to make sure that we have students kindergarten ready and really focus on those early years and thinking about birth to 5 years. And there will be some money available depending on what plan our team comes out of that committee. So just really quickly wanted to list some of the individuals that we will have, or the organizations that will be on our team. I think we have 10 to 12 individuals. And so we have the Head Start Center Manager, we have the Assistant Director of Wilderness Child Development Center, of course Suzanne, Assistant Principal at Hogsett, the Executive Director of Danville, Phil, Schools Education Foundation. We have a couple of community members. We have the Community Impact Director, Heart of Kentucky United Way. We have Executive Director. We also have the Executive Director of Human Resources at Ephraim McDowell as a part of the team. We have the family resource coordinator also from Hogsett Primary, and then we have a teacher from Danville Montessori. So it's a really good cross-section of community groups that are really focused on those early years and getting students ready for school, ready for kindergarten. So really excited to have received one of those 10 slots at the School Readiness Summit, and thank you to Suzanne for working that out for us.
Definitely, thank you. Great cross-section of the community. So, I mean, it's an ideal situation for our community and our schools. Next, we will have student recognition.
Yes, and we have the 2 elementary schools, so we can call Hogsett up first. Is Leo?
Leo is here.
All right, welcome everyone. We are going to be recognizing some Hogsett students and then one Hogsett faculty member. The first name that I have to read the first certificate goes to Ariana Kruver. And I don't see Ariana. Ariana, come on up. Ariana. She's receiving this certificate tonight because of her outstanding academics. As a kindergartner, she has completed her kindergarten level of Lexia, and she has even moved past first grade and then is working currently on her second grade Lexia level. So. Here, let's turn her certificate around. All right, thank you. All right. We also, I don't see him, Kevin Simino. Is Kevin here tonight? Kevin may not be able to join us tonight, but he is also a kindergartner, and he is receiving this certificate for outstanding academics. Same thing, he has completed all of kindergarten level, completed first, and is currently working on second grade level Lexia. So congratulations to Kevin. Our next award goes to Ruth Goodwin. Thank you. So Ruth, come on up. Ruth is receiving this certificate for outstanding academics. She has completed all of second grade Dream Box. So as a first grader. So not only has she completed her grade level, but she has completed the next grade level. And at the time of the certificate, she's probably already started third grade Dreambox work. So she'll be running the school in just a few months.
Take your job.
That's right. We have another certificate. This goes to Marquise Paraham. So Marquise, come on up. And he is receiving this for his Danville Diploma Skill of Taking Initiative. So congratulations, Marquise. Come over here. Oh, wait.
Boy, you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. Plus, I'm going to make him stand up here because I wasn't finished. Marquise is just one of those students that does everything that he's asked to do, and he does it happily. And in Danville schools, we take our Danville diploma skills very important, or take that seriously. And even as early as in the primary school, we're pushing those Danville diploma skills. So thank you, Marquise, for all the work you do every day. This next certificate goes to Camden Miracle. Camden's coming up. This is for outstanding academics. As a first grader, he's completed all of first grade Dreambox and then moved into second grade Dreambox. So congratulations. We're going to turn this way. We're going to turn on the All right, thank you. Come on there. And then we have one faculty
certificate to read today. And Ms. Farmer, will you come up too, just as part of the administration? I'd like you up here. But this goes to Mrs. Jerica Funkhauser. So Mrs. Funkhauser she is a first grade teacher, but she has received an Ashland Teacher of the Year nomination, and that is quite an accomplishment. So. Thank you. Yeah. All right. I also have a message, and this goes to the Tolliver students too. So there are cupcakes downstairs that need to be eaten. So when you finish up here, if you'll work your way downstairs to the lobby area and help eat those cupcakes.
No.
Thank you. We'll save you one.
Well, I'm really disappointed we weren't included in that.
We'll save you.
Oh, okay.
You're not with a good bang, not a bad bang.
Now we have Robin Kelly, principal at Tolliver, and she has a lot. Thank you.
We've already heard about all the great things the arts are doing in the Danville schools this year. Not to be undone is the STEM programs, or the engineering and robotics programs. Tolliver received a grant this year from Corning Glass in the amount of around $10,000, and we purchased a bunch of VEX robots with that. Our 5th grade showcase put together some robots, and if I call your name, you all come on up and bring your robots with you, please. Tyler Markham, Gage Ross, Esmeralda Topalakia, May Pierce, Michael Holder, Jason Graves, Allie Carmichael, Richard Johnson, McCaven Walker, Robert Spears, Jasmine Ridge, Taylor Taylor, Jackson Fields, and Moira Kelly. As you can see, these 5th graders are pretty talented. They've got their robots together. They've got the motors in them. They're driving them by remote control. It's pretty fascinating. And not to be undone that emotions aren't these just emotionless characters. A couple of these robots really found each other fond, and one of these ladies met a really nice gentleman. We had a wedding, and there was an officiant at this wedding, another robot. So they did a great job. Let's hear one more baby on the clock.
Does it do homework?
Mine don't.
Yours don't.
Yeah, mine doesn't single.
That's all right. That is all right. Oh, I'm impressed.
One chin.
All the moms got their pictures.
No, my mom takes too much.
Don't forget your cupcakes. Don't forget your cupcakes.
Y'all keep up the excellent work. That is outstanding.
Have your robot bring me a cupcake. Amy, are you good? Your robot wants my back. Oh, her robot.
It's our robot.
That's all right.
As you all can see, our student recognition, and also we had a faculty member recognized. That's why we're here. It's not writing checks, and it's not hiring principals and teachers, and it's not everything that has to happen in a school district, because it can't happen unless we're here for the kids. And we can never forget that. So, and we truly mean all means all, and success for all of our kids. So, and it makes an impact on our community. So thanks to all the students that were here and the teachers that make all those things happen. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So next we have the personnel report. That's just for you all to look over. If you have anything you need to comment about, just get a hold of Dr. McDonald tomorrow. And so I need, now our next item is approval of the minutes, and I need a motion for that, please.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay, could we, and that would be the meetings of 3/12/19, 3/18/19, and 3/27/19. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing there is none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I think we're gonna have Lisa Fisher up next. I need a motion, please.
Make a motion on the approval of 2018-19 Title IX report as submitted.
Second.
And we have a second, and now we'll have some, the report and some discussion, I'm sure, afterwards.
I believe you guys have a copy attached, do you? Okay. I'll just review it really quickly. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll read, all of it to you because I know you've had that information. Of course, this is our process of submitting is every April the 30th. We submit to the KHSAA to look over and review our Title IX efforts to meet any of the 3 prongs of the Title IX test. And we do that each year, fortunately. The first page of the document, you'll see the committee members listed. We have a minimum of 3 meetings a year, which is what we had this year. That October meeting actually went along with an audit. This year was our audit year. The next few pages just talk about our historical team matrix. The importance of that is just to look that we're always trying to meet the needs, the interests, more or less, not the needs, but the interests of our student body, of what teams we have, what teams we field. However, it does count as a new team each year. It varies on what JV teams we have, what freshman teams we have, and those do count as new teams each year that we add those. So if we go a year without a freshman team and then we come back and add one, it's the same as adding a new team. You'll see that bass fishing is our most recent add on there, which has went very well. Then the next few pages is your rosters. When you look at those and you see those X's outside of there, that could be something as simple as when I add somebody in and I take them out for whatever reason that might be, even if I add a female to a male team accidentally, it's going to come back and put an X beside them. It's an indicator for the KHSAA records, has a lot to do sometimes even with transfers, because the roster input is, the rosters are calculated by what I have input, and then it just transfers over to this. I don't have to do all new rosters, so that's where that comes from. That's what all those things are. The next part is the Form T1, the proportionality test. The goal there is to meet within 3% of your enrollment of one gender with the participation of, that gender. So that is the prong that we most commonly meet. And looks like with this report, of course I don't decide, but based on the numbers we had, we're gonna meet that prong again. And you'll see the interest, the summary. We did not have to do, it was not part of here, to do a survey. A survey is given every other year. So last year that was in our report last year. Combination of interest, that page being Form T4, shows you the number of varsity, JV, and freshman teams that we have, the numbers participating. In the Title IX counts too, though, if you are on varsity, JV, or freshman, even if it's girls basketball and you're on each one of those teams, as a freshman you could play on all 3, or even as an 8th grader you could, that counts that many times for having the team join. So we got a double and a triple count in some cases. The next one on T35 is all of our expenditures for the 17-18 year, okay, not the 18-19, because of course we haven't finished this year, fiscal year this year, so all those numbers come from 17-18. One of the things I'll point out there is within the facilities in 17-18 we got new bleachers in the gym, and the reason that divides out is it goes into 4 different sports, all of our gym sports, so you see that divided out instead of one total lump sum there. And you'll see in our Title IX improvement plan, it's a little more comprehensive in our Title IX binder and what I keep meeting to meeting, et cetera. But what they're looking for is some things that they gave, suggestions they gave us during the audit, and you'll see that I have softball field listed there. They are working closely with me to see where we're at. I'm keeping them updated and trying to even, Kathy Johnston and I have formed a relationship over the years, and they even try to send her pictures of progress already, so she can see that. The next form, you'll see what I was talking about in row 10 of where we meet the proportionality test, the percentage difference between percentage of enrollment and percentage of participation being less than 3%. And then past that, you have the participation list, and that's primarily why this form is still has preliminary at the top of it for you, because I have until April the 30th, and there is a possibility that I'll have a few roster changes in spring sports before I submit. So I won't actually submit it probably until the 28th or so, but always bring it before you guys for a review before submitting it, and we didn't have another, this was the only option in April, of course. You guys have any questions?
I just have a comment. Being in a former job, I did that about 15 times, and when I read your report, it was really excellent. It takes a lot of time and effort to get it right, because if you don't get it right, the KHSA, they catch you.
They do, they send it back, and they catch you more now, because I did it that many years ago too, and it was all tallying all those rosters by hand. At least now we have a software program that enters that, and like I said, those rosters are calculated for me, and the numbers, excuse me. So that makes it a little bit easier, but they get you even more now, because it's all right there and electronically generated for them, so they know what you made a mistake.
I think you did an excellent job.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else have any comments to make? Lisa, I just want to say great job.
Thank you.
And any challenges that you're seeing, any trends, things that are going on we need to be aware of? Or
No, I'm still having the occasional conversation of when are we going to add bowling. I did that interest meeting 2 springs ago. Plan to do that again, and golf is one thing that we haven't had for a few years. Well, 2 years ago we did have a single, but we haven't had a golf team. I'm going to do an interest meeting with that before school's out, after school one day, and see where we are with that and moving forward in the summer, because they start so early. They start July 15th, and they can do matches like at the end of July, so it starts way before school, so I'm on that.
Okay.
Did you have an active bass team?
We do, yes, yeah.
Are you gonna have a fish fry?
We had our first, well, I don't know, you have to ask Coach Stone that. But we had our first.
Don't waste any resources.
Yeah, but with that said, Mr. Ball, we had our first bass fishing tournament as a school a few weeks ago, and it went great. We had 45 boats there. They went out on Taylorsville Lake, and Coach Stone did a great job with that, organizing that, and it was my first. And other than hitting a deer on the way, I'll say everything went well. It was good.
I was going to say, did you have your deer license?
Oh, it was dark. It was like 5 in the morning. Why do people fish at 5?
Oh, Lord, I can imagine.
Thank you. We had a motion to approve the report in a second.
So moved.
Is there any other discussion?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Now we're on item 7 on the agenda, and this is our second reading of the policy. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second reading of the policy of 82323. It's a revision. Do we have a motion, please? I don't think we need to do this, but yeah. Let's go. Yeah, go ahead. We need a motion, please.
I make a motion that we approve of the revision to the policy 08.2323 to update our acceptability use policy as submitted.
Second.
Okay, seeing there's a motion and a second. Dr. McDonald, can you just do a reminder for us on?
Yes, we reviewed this policy at the work session last week, and just as a reminder, it's access to electronic media. And so the two main pieces that you'll see a change in the policy is to social media. And so in the past, it was suggested and strongly encouraged for teachers to have a professional social media account that was separate from their personal account. But in this policy, it actually requires them that if they are going to make connections or have interaction with the students in their classes, that they will set up an actual social media that's a professional account and keep it separate from personal. And then the second piece that's in here that is new is that if teachers need to text a student, and we know teachers that are sponsors, whether it's academic team or sports team, and they are away at events with students, that it might be necessary to send an individual text to that student. It's required in this policy that they add and make it a group text with the parent or another faculty member in their school, so that there's not any one-to-one text messaging. So.
Is there any other comments or?
But that excludes, it excludes the Remind app, or, or how?
So, yeah, no, they can, so teachers can use and are encouraged to use the group app. So if you are with a sports team or one of the academic teams and you're out, you would shoot out reminders for practice, or we'll be leaving on the bus at this time through your group app.
Right.
But maybe if you're at the bus and one student, has not made it back, you would want to send a quick direct to that student, but you would need to add the parent or another faculty member to that text.
But does this limit, because I know through the Remind app, you can have a conversation, so this would kind of encompass that too, you shouldn't have one-on-one conversations within that app?
Yeah, so it's talking about literally the text
Okay.
on your phone,
Okay.
one-to-one. It's
Okay.
not talking about the group apps that
Okay.
they will have their teams on.
Okay.
And it's spelled out specifically.
Yeah, I read
in
it,
the
but just, I
policy.
know within that group app, there's a way to one-on-one with
Yes.
people, and so I just, okay.
Yeah, there is.
Also, I'd like to recommend to Dr. McDonald that as soon as we approve this app, maybe tomorrow, not the app, but I mean the policy, that we send this out, because it's a big deal. And we don't need to wait on, you all trying to go to the website, our website, and looking it up. I'd really like to see it sent out.
Yeah. Absolutely, and
Okay.
the draft's already been sent to principals, and this really will affect the high school more than it will the other schools, and it's already been sent in the draft form to all of our high school teachers, and we did ask for feedback. So they did receive this about a week ago, and so they've had time to look, and a few of them, I believe, did contact Brian with some questions to get clarity and some feedback, but we will, after it is approved, remove drafts, send out the final
Okay.
version tomorrow to principals for them to share with their faculty.
Thank you. That'll be wonderful. See, we've had a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Saying there is none, the motion has passed. And we appreciate all that work, because there's a lot of work involved in policy changes. So thank you. The item 8 is notification of the procedure. Is there anything in there that you want to?
No,
It's just a,
everything that I just referred to, it's just updated in there as well, so, and you don't have to make a motion, it's just notification.
okay. That's good. Okay, we're going to jump on to 9, which is reports, and we have many of them. So 9A is the finance report. I'd like a motion, please.
Make a motion that we approve of the financial report as submitted.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. So Dr. Donald, will you give us a bit of an update?
Yes, so if you pull up the financial report in your attachments, page 1 looks just like it does each month, so you can probably follow along fairly easily. Part 1 at the top, we do have our munis balance there. Part 2 is the actual munis balance sheet, and as you know, in Part 2, if you'll look at that bottom total there, which is $8,280,999, and so that in our munis balance sheet, we always want it to match our bank statement. So if you'll look down at Part 3, you have the bank reconciliation, and they do match. You have the exact same total there. And so the total that you see on Part 3 under bank reconciliation, that actually comes from the first page of our bank statement, which is the last page of your attachment. And so that's, of course, page 1 with your totals, and as you notice, all 3 of those in Part 1, 2, and 3 do match. Page 2 is our expenditures, and then page 3 and 4 is our revenue. So you can look down through there and see where our revenue was for the month of March. So any questions this time?
How was our taxes as far as?
So, I'm not, of course, I'm not positive, I don't have the exact number, but I will tomorrow pull the exact number for you and send it in an email. But as far as I know, in talking with Sharon, we are on target as to last year, so not having any problems.
And I had called Dr. McDonald about it. It said Housing Authority of Danville, $26,000. And I thought, what in the world? And then Dr. McDonald was able to go back and research it, and it was a reminder to me. But that was their tax bill, is how they paid us. So that was actually a good thing. So thank you for taking care of that. Are there any other items of discussion or points of discussion on this? Okay, seeing that we have a motion and a second, all those in favor of the financial report as submitted?
Aye.
Aye. All those against, saying there is none, the motion has carried. So our next item on the agenda is paying the invoices.
Yes, and so you have a fairly large packet there. We have quite a few for the month of March. And so as you look through them, the majority of the large expenditures that you have that we paid are for the Hogsett project. So if you go through and if you literally were just going to highlight the larger amounts, they're for the Hogsett construction project. But I will point out just a couple in here that may be of interest. That are some of the larger amounts. We do have $2,817, and that is for our letters training, which is our reading professional development that we're working on with our K-5 teachers. And so that's for some of the initial training pieces for some of our facilitators that we'll have in-house. If you also turn in there, we actually have some bills for our softball field, which I guess is actually kind of exciting. You hate to say a bill is exciting, but it is exciting that the project's underway. And so you'll notice we have some architect fees in there. There's $27,000 for some of that initial work that was done and moved forward. So it is exciting that we have that there. Of course, you know, we've been working with some of our HVAC projects, so we do have quite a few smaller bills that total up to $6,600, and that's for HVAC at the high school and some work that's being done there. And then I flagged a couple of others, so let me pull them up. Some custodial supplies we have for $6,500, and so there's a lot of little bills that takes up a couple of pages, but that's across all of our buildings, and so you have that there. And then towards the end, you will see that we have the bill for our therapy dog. So Addie is officially ours. We own her and we've paid for her, which is kind of exciting. And if you've not got a chance to connect with Addie, please do so, because you can kind of tell she does make you feel better even when you're just standing near her. There was a couple at the very end I just wanted to point out to you as well. So there's a phase 1 environmental study in there, and that was some of the work that we had to do, the preliminary work for the new purchase of the building next door. And then we also had our ACT dinner, and I'm sure you were aware, to honor our students that scored a 28 or above on ACT. And so we have the payment in there for that. Well, we had that dinner to honor those students that scored 28 or more on the ACT. And so there was just some of the highlights. Definitely dig deep into it, and if you have any questions on any of our invoices that we paid, I'd be glad to talk with you about that.
Can we claim the third party dependent?
That would be nice if we could. Probably not. I'm going to guess no.
Let's put that out for legality.
Okay. Go ahead and make the motion. I move that the board give the approval of the payment of invoices totaling $1,270,833.88 as presented.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Now we are to 9C, which is a change order number 7. And Matt, is that you and Christie?
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion.
I make a motion for the approval of change order number 7 that proposes the changes to the Marilla Design design and construction contract that results in the increase in the amount of $6,242 to the Mary G. Hogford Primary School Addition and Renovation Project.
And we need a second. Okay, motion has been offered and seconded, so Matt, if you'll give us an update.
Okay. This will be the change order for the general contractor. There's 5 items. Would you like me to go through each item?
Sure.
Okay. Number PR 37 is we've got 4 resource rooms that are off of the cafeteria, and we through the shop drawing phase we decided to upgrade those lights to be a little bit different feel, and they're little small room, little breakout rooms. We had one. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of a cold. We had one light in the middle of the room, but we elected to upgrade those lights to 2 cove lights to kind of give it a little more intimate feel in those rooms. So that's 4 rooms that we had upgraded those lights. Number 40, revision 1, was, again, during the shop drawing review, we had some modular storage units in the gymnasium that we, through the review, me and Chris reviewed those, found that they weren't really doing what we wanted them to do, so we elected to remove that portion of the work and just take the money that was put in the contract for it, so that just gives you a credit back to the contract. And look at doing something different with that idea, but what they submitted wasn't really what we were looking for. We kind of gave them some general ideas of the type of storage we wanted to do, and what they provided wasn't really what we intended to get, so we just selected to take that money back. Number 42, revision 2, is when we demoed all the areas for the new windows, we found that the actual sill condition when the windows get installed was different than what the existing drawing showed. And we needed to add a little blocking in order to have a solid mount in those windows. So that's all of the big classroom windows down both sides of the building. So that was an add to include that additional blocking. And then 43, in the area where we went from the old building into the new west addition, we had to extend the soffit based on existing additions in order to get some mechanical ductwork and fire sprinkler into the new addition. So these were adding some soffits in the ceiling in order to conceal that rough end. And then 44 revision 1 is it combines 3 different areas where we had found that some additional demo work was needed, and we elected to. We received proposal requests for those, but I thought they were kind of high, so I asked them to move ahead with time and materials, and that actually brought that price down. So when those 3 of those came in, we combined them into one proposal request and had to revise it. So that's with those 5 items. Any questions on those?
Any discussion or any more questions? Seeing that we have a motion and a second, and we have finished our discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We're going to go to item 9D, and we need a motion, please.
Make the motion for the approval of change order number 3 that proposes changes to the direct purchase order contract for the Atlas Enterprises that results in the decrease of the amount of $721 to the Mary G. Hogsett Primary School Addition and Renovation Project.
And we need a second, please.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. So Matt, you.
So basically, the reason it's a separate change order is because it was a direct purchase order, and we have to separate those contracts. But during the shop drawing review of the display boards, the marker boards, and tag boards, we found that a couple of could be removed. They weren't. We could get away with not using them. It was kind of in relationship to the new digital displays that are on the wall, and I thought they might have become in conflict of it and really not used. So we elected to remove a small amount of tag boards that would go above those digital display boards and to give you credit back to the contract.
Any more questions or discussion? Okay, seeing we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
I love the pictures. I drove by the other day. We're all gonna go on tours, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be back on Thursday, if anyone wants to come out there on Thursday.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to 9E, which is the mowing contract with the Isaiah House. Kristen, do we need a motion, please?
Make a motion that we enter into a contract with Isaiah House for mowing services as submitted.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Christie, if you'll.
This is the company that we've had do our contract on for the past 2 years. This will be their third year. They have expanded enough that they also do Mercer County and what county are you from? Marion County. I'm really tired.
You got too much going on.
I feel like I'm spinning in circles. Plus one other county that was, they've got 3 school systems they do now, and they actually have a team dedicated to just Danville schools. So the same 5 guys with the same supervisor, and it has made a huge difference. Before we got the details of this, I went ahead and hired them on a per mow basis, and they're doing a fantastic job. And they are in direct contact with Danny Gadberry. They have his phone number. They've got all our sports schedules and testing schedules. And they are a member of the KPC purchasing co-op in the state. And so we can contract with them to mow. And I think I provided their number. You have that in. Do you have any other questions?
Well, and I did have and I talked to Dr. McDonald about it. There's always concerns from the community when a contract is approved, and then we're not bidding on that contract, and of course it's above the $20,000 what we're allowed to, but through the co-op, all that is taken care of.
Correct.
So as long as we have the co-op and they're doing the procedures correctly, which they are, then we can take on these companies. Like this company states that they would mow based on per acres. Am I correct? Is how that worked out?
Yes.
And so, and that's a public number. So if another school district wants to use them and they're part of the co-op, that would be the exact same contracted number they would get, just like ours. So it does make our procedures a whole lot easier and beneficial.
And will never be charged over 24 mowings, even if they mow more than 24 times.
Which has been a nice agreement because they really take care of our properties. It's been a great deal. So
They mowed at our new building today.
yeah, I saw that. Looked good. Yeah. All right. Is there any other discussion or questions?
Is I the director goes along with that, Ms. Fisher? You
Sorry?
you like what they do?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion carries that we will continue to have Isaiah House as our mowing contract. Thank you. Okay, next on there is the, oh, we put that last. The KSBA in-district training, possible action. Have you all had a chance to go over things with that? I mean, we can have a motion or we don't have to. Go ahead.
I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
I think any organization can benefit from as much training as possible, but I'd like the board to consider perhaps doing this in the summer workshop or in the fall, because I've only been on the board here 4 months, and we've been at 2 away weekends being trained all weekend, over 30 hours, plus already had 175 hours. So I think it's just a little overkill, but that doesn't mean I'm against it. But I would think in the fall, when there's a lot less happening, like right now, a lot of things are happening in the schools, like when we got the list from the Danville High School president. I mean, so I'm for it, but just not at this time. But if you all still want to do it, I'll do it with you. I'm not saying no, I'll be there if you want to do it.
Any other comments? Laura, do you have any?
I mean, I still like the idea of doing it, and I think this is a little different, like I said, at the work session, than doing it at a big conference, because we're actually able to talk to each other and not in a big room. So, I mean, I'm fine with doing it during the summer or in the fall. I think during the summer might work, you know, during the thing. It actually, the copy that was emailed out had mine that I highlighted on here. So,
That's okay.
so that's the kind of the ones that I thought, but I just think it would just help our team as far as, you know, having some good discussions. And I don't think it needs to be one of the 3 or 4 hour ones, but maybe 1 hour would be nice, you know. And even I really like the one that, you know, maybe we could do a shorter version of supporting student achievement through effective board governance, or whose job is it in anyways, board superintendent or council, because I think that's also, if the public meeting, it's an interesting thing. I think people often get our roles very confused, so. But, I don't know, I like them all.
Well, and I'd like to comment, I know at the national conference that I just attended, the governance is really a big deal. I went to a couple of sessions on that, and it's how to have our policies really ignite, excite, and get monies in the direction of students, more so than other places. We know we have to pay the bills, we know all that. But it's the point of making sure that what we're doing is truly directing as many dollars, the dollars that are available to our students. So, you know, I'm for this. This is something we could do in our session on at the board retreat is my suggestion. Is that Sue, which would be July the 9th. And I know those details are getting worked out. So what I'm asking if you guys would do is to send to me and copy Tammy and everybody what your choices might be, and then that way we can hopefully come up with one that will suit everyone, so that we could also line up with KSBA to maybe bring in one of their facilitators.
Two choices.
Try to get it down to 2, and then we'll see if there's a happy medium somewhere. And then if we can do that and then report back at the fall work session so that we can have all that together, then we can move on.
At the May work session?
Yeah, at the May work session.
So we're waiting till fall?
We're going to wait till fall. So anyway, so is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now we're on item 9G, which is going to be discussion of implementing the medical services with possible action. I really would like to leave this in discussion at this point, and then once we kind of get through the discussion, then we can make a motion and then kind of see where we go. Is everybody agreeable with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Dr. McDonald had said that she would report to us on some things that pros, cons, comments, whatever it might be, and then that way we can, after that, we can discuss on our own level amongst each other. So if you don't mind.
Okay, great, thank you. So I want to start off by saying that we had 2 really great proposals for a school-based health clinic at 2 different work sessions. And then a repeat, and then a second proposal at this last work session. And there was a lot of information embedded in both of those proposals. And just sitting through them, you know, back to back, it would have been very difficult to have made a decision on the spot. And there's a lot of information that needed a little bit deeper look. And so for the last week, I spent a good bit of time going back through both proposals, doing some research and some of the data that was presented in the proposals, doing research. I've called and talked with other school systems that have different types of school-based health clinics and some superintendents as well to see what their thoughts were. So I want to say just, you know, right up front, they were both great proposals. And no matter what the outcome, if the board goes with either proposal, I think that our students are much better off than we are currently. The wraparound services that will be provided through either proposal will be an amazing addition to our school system for next year. So in saying that, I do want to kind of start by throwing one piece out there that's not necessarily in the decision-making process, but I was asked by another superintendent to make our board aware, and that is Bergen Independent School District. So they are in discussions with Cumberland. And because of their size and that they're so small, they actually are only going to be able to go with Cumberland if our school board goes with Cumberland, because they would combine the numbers. So that is not a reason to make a decision in favor of Cumberland, but their superintendent did ask for me to share that information with you tonight, so I'm doing that. The way that would work is, my understanding, and I have talked with Cumberland about it extensively, and have known about that piece from the beginning, but have been leaving it out of the decision process, but since they called me specifically this week and asked me to inform the board, I did. Their board has had several meetings and discussions, and they met last Thursday, and actually their board received an update on what was going on with Danville schools. And so, for example, with the licensed clinical social worker that would be provided by Cumberland, so could probably carry a caseload of 30 to 35, but say Danville's in need of 45 to 50. So that second social worker that would be provided would be split between us and Bergen, because they are smaller and may only need 15 to 20. And so at any point where we have a little bit of an overflow, a second individual would be hired and we would split with Bergen. So Bergen's, like I said, superintendent asked me to pass that information along. So I wanted to do that before we actually got into the proposal. So as we get started, I just wanted to say that one of the things when Ron and I really started investigating to look to bring in a school-based health clinic to Danville, one of the kind of key things that we were looking for was on-site services, and for several reasons. So one, we know that realistically, Danville Schools does have a high poverty rate. We are anywhere from 66 to 68% poverty, depending on what day. If you do any poverty research, and Ruby Payne's a great person to look into her research and read her work if you're interested in poverty, you know that there are barriers to students getting good health care, and some of those barriers are, for example, transportation. There's also some work, that I actually have her book in my bag and was highlighting some things in it today, to where individuals that are living in poverty are often sometimes frightened to even walk into a hospital, doctor's office, or clinic, and so bringing that service into the school is very important. And so it's really one key concept to school-based health clinics. So one of the main things we were looking for is providing that on-site service, which both proposals do have pieces of the on-site service with them. And just as a reminder before we dig into the PowerPoint, and I will apologize, this is not going to be quick, it was a lot of information to go through. We do have this in our strategic plan that the board approved, and so out of our 3 priority areas, we know that school wellness is one of those 3 areas, and out of our 8 goals, we know that 2 of those goals are underneath that school wellness. And so I do want to just really quickly show where that Goal 4, Strategy 4 states that the district will increase nursing services to provide and expand direct student health services by having a nurse in each building. But the key word, I think, in that strategy is direct student health services. And so that's one of the key pieces to a school-based health clinic, is that direct on-site service.
Tammy,
yes.
Pardon me. Do you have a copy to follow along? If not, I have to move. I can't see.
Oh, actually, I do. So I'll be glad to pass that down. Let's see. Read down that way. And we'll give you a, you want to take notes? Here's a, do you want to do this?
Please.
Yeah. You can take notes on those copies as well.
But it'll be on the screen.
And it's on the screen, yes. But you're welcome to take notes on the hard copy. So the first screen that I pulled up is so one of our proposals, some of the data that we saw was actually comparing Danville Independent to some of our surrounding counties. Adair County was one county that we were compared to in looking at some of the Kentucky health statistics. And earlier in the year, if you remember when we had our July work session, and we were talking about how lots of times we as Danville Independent get compared to districts around us, and it's really looking at apples to oranges instead of apples to apples. And so one of the things I did was I went back and pulled up Nelson County, which is Bardstown Independent. And if you'll remember, back in the summer, we actually compared ourselves on academic data to Bardstown Independent. And so in looking at that, and if you, okay, and Teresa's on this screen. So this is just a reminder of Bardstown Independent's demographics. So their enrollment, their demographics, their free and reduced lunch rate. And so out of all of the school systems in Kentucky, we're the closest to Bardstown Independent. Not only in demographics in our school, but also in makeup in their community. They also have a hospital. They also have several things within their community in Bardstown that's very similar to Danville. So it's really good when we're looking at data to compare ourselves to Bardstown versus some of our surrounding counties, because that's just not real accurate information. So moving on and looking at the health statistics. So last week we saw some factors that were pulled from a website. It was County Health Rankings, and I have the actual site on the next slide, so that if you want to go look some of this information up on your own, you're more than welcome to. And it's the exact same source that was used in last week's presentation. And so Boyle County Health Factors, remember that we were 8 out of 120 counties, which is really amazing. And then in clinical care, we were number 10. But Adair County was noted, and if they're 73 in health factors, and their clinical care is 70 out of 120, which is very different from Boyle County. But Nelson, which I just said their school system, Bardstown Independent, is very similar to us. You notice their health factors, they're 12, and their clinical care is 9. So they really are much closer to us to look at their data to make comparisons. And so I have pulled the exact same charts that we saw last week on this slide. And I have Boyle County on the left, and that's Adair County on the right, and you would have seen this last week. And what this chart is its number of primary care physicians compared to individuals within that county. And so you do have the state and the national average, but what I want to point out is the way this line graph works. So if the line graph is increasing, that means that the number of individuals per one primary care physician, that the number of those individuals increases. So basically, you kind of have to think in the reverse. As that line increases, that county is going down in primary care physicians. And as that line decreases, that county is going up in primary care physicians. And of course, you know, if it's a small county, that could be one individual move in and out of the county and make a difference. So it's not necessarily large numbers that are causing that shift. It could be one person retire in a county. However, this chart actually spans, if you'll notice, from 2010 to 2016. And in Adair County, you'll see between 2015 and 2016 that line decreases, which meant they added a primary care physician somewhere. They increased their primary care physicians. Adair County actually added their school-based health clinic in 2016, where you see an increase in primary care physicians, and they added Cumberland. Flip to the next slide for me. So this is Boyle County, and this is Nelson County. You can see that Nelson County is still a little bit above Danville. They're still not lucky as we are. They don't have as many primary care physicians per individuals as Danville, so it's a pretty great place to live. But as you'll notice on their chart, the last 2 years, between 15 and 16, in Nelson County, the line's increasing, which means that they decreased in their number of primary care physicians. Coincidentally, in Nelson County, they also established a school-based health clinic in 2016. They actually, though, established with some of their local doctors. So they had a different model than Adair County, and they created a partnership with their local pediatricians. So I think that really, you know, in looking at a lot of data in my career and the prior jobs that I've had, I don't see that I would, in my opinion, connect the increase or decrease of primary care physicians with the addition of a school-based health clinic, just based on looking at this. Because you have two different types of clinics. One county went up, one county decreased the year that the school-based clinic went in. So just in my opinion, and looking at the data, and I also compared a few other of the counties that Cumberland was in, and I just picked these two because Adair was chosen last week, and then Nelson County is the one that's closest to us in Boyle County and in Danville Independent. So moving on, and thinking about the fact that Bardstown Independent is the closest school district to our demographics and makeup in Kentucky, I started doing a little bit of research because they had a clinic that was established with the school district and their local group of pediatricians. So they established that in 2016, which you heard me say, and everything you're seeing on this slide and the next slide is actually from the media, the local media in their area. So these are articles that you can go just to Google search and look up on your own. The first article is to create an on-site health clinic, which is where we're at. So they're a few years ahead of us in this process. And so the Kentucky Standard had an article that talks about them creating that and that they are going, at that point in 2016, into partnership with their local pediatricians. There's a couple of more articles as the local community follows the progress of the in-school health clinics. Those articles are from the Nelson County Gazette, and the bullets at the bottom in the August 2017 article are direct quotes from that article as well. And so what we see, and if you'll flip to the next screen, I'm just going to summarize this group of articles, is that Bardstown Independent had their local pediatrician clinic for 2 years. At the end of the second year, they did an RFP to let other providers have the option to bid on these services. And in 2018, they did not have any local doctors, physicians, pediatricians bid in that RFP process. And in May of 2018, they awarded their RFP to Cumberland Family Medical Center. So it seemed a little odd to me that they only had 2 years with the local pediatrician group and that they went to Cumberland and that they also did an RFP. So I called the superintendent of Bardstown Independent to get some more details of what was going on. And so, he said that both clinics, of course, provided excellent service, but that the local physicians had basically said that they would not continue because they, of course, were for-profit. They had families, this was their income, and that they were not making actually any money. They were actually going in the hole, and it was hurting their actual doctor's office. And so they had backed out, and Cumberland moved in at that point. So local investment. So we've heard a lot about, that, we have a local investment here. And so as I really looked at it, I believe that both proposals that are on the table are local proposals. So the Cumberland Family Medical Clinic operates the women's care of the Commonwealth here in town. That's if you need an OB, that's where I would say the majority, I guess, of folks would go in Danville. Danville Pediatrics operates here in town as well, and they're proposing the Scott and Goodwin Children's Clinic. So if you'll see the first bullet on both of those, they're literally neighbors. So we have one proposal that owns and operates a clinic on 3rd Street. We have another proposal that owns and operates a medical clinic on 4th Street. One has 4 physicians, one has 5 physicians. So looking at their nurse practitioners, very similar in size. So when you're comparing here for local investment, they both own clinics in town, very similar in size and so forth. One difference is that Cumberland's a nonprofit, Danville Pediatrics, although I in no way am insinuating that anything is necessarily for-profit, it's just how it is established. I know that the hearts are where it's at in doing these proposals. But the actual piece I want to point out too in thinking about local investment is the last bullet. So Cumberland Family Medical Clinic provides 2 scholarships each year to Danville High School students. Danville Pediatrics provides a physician for all of our home football games. So both groups are not just invested in the community by operating clinics, both groups also are very invested in Danville schools by providing these services at no cost to our schools. So I think that's really great. And I know bottom line on both proposals is everyone has a big heart, and the bottom line for everybody is what's best for students and really looking at the need of students in Danville. So it's amazing that we're lucky enough community to have this many individuals that really are wanting to do what's the best for our students. So I know no matter how the board goes on this proposal or which side, because it's going to be such a tough decision for you as a board, that both of these groups would continue to offer that local investment, especially that last bullet that we see there. Go ahead, Teresa. So at our last meeting, I'm just pulling back up the what was approved at our last board meeting. So on March 16th, we voted to table, or the board voted to table the Healthy Kids, the clinic option so that we could open it up to other proposals, which was amazing because we got a really good second proposal on the table. But I do want to point out number 3. So this is the actual language. It's in your minutes that you approved tonight, and this was voted on unanimously, is that the board will decide on a health plan based on services provided and financial cost to the budget. So even though I just showed you a slide that said both groups really do have a local investment, I do think that we need to, or you as a board and me as my role as your advisor, really focus on the services provided and the financial cost to our school district. One, that's what you voted to do, and then 2, I do think that's what's best for our students as we move forward. So again, I want to put some actual numbers up here. Remember, this is self-reported from our parents and guardians. So we heard some different numbers about services, and so this comes from our medical forms at Danville schools, all 1,900. For Hogsett, we have 66% of our students that use Danville Pediatric, Tolliver's 59, Bate 57, and high school's 44. So yes, overwhelmingly, the majority is over 50%. Over 50% of our students use Danville Pediatric as their primary care physician. We also have other local primary care physicians that our students use. And there's the percentage. Hogsett has 25% using other local primary care physicians, and then you can see Tolliver 29, Bate 32, and the high school 42. The interesting number, and the one that I'm the most concerned about, is the one across the bottom. 11.5% of Danville students report that they do not have a primary care physician. And some of the things that I talked about at the very beginning of my conversation is that students that are living in poverty don't necessarily feel comfortable or going to a primary care physician, their parents maybe, or they have transportation issues for various reasons. And we have 11.5% self-reported by parents that they do not have a primary care physician. And really thinking about going back to the goal that's in our strategic plan of direct services, on-site wraparound services is what's going to benefit this 11.5% of our students. And there are barriers to those students going off-site to different areas. These students that we see up here with this primary care physician, whether it's Danville Pediatrics or other local physicians, they're going to their primary care physician. Their parents are taking them in for their well checks. Their parents are taking them in, when they're sick. And so it's these 11.5 that we're really concerned about. So thinking about goals for school-based health clinic. One, on-site is very important, because if we have services that are on-site, it's going to decrease time for students to leave our building and go to an off-site somewhere. It's going to increase instructional time and decrease time out of class. It's also going to increase teacher attendance. So most of the school-based health clinics in the school districts that I've talked with that have teacher services in the school-based clinic, to where the teacher can actually, if they're starting to feel bad, not sure if they have a fever, they can go to the clinic as well within the school, find out immediately there's no fever, you probably got some allergy drainage, you tested negative for strep, it's probably allergy drainage and not strep, you tested negative here. I'm going to go back and finish the last few hours of school, before instead of leaving in the middle of the day and having to sub for a half a day. Anderson County, Sheila Mitchell, superintendent, has been noted in saying that their services are really great and that they have had an increase in teacher attendance since they've had on-site school-based health clinic there. And then a focus on school health issues, I also think is very important, and then education as well. So I don't have this anywhere else in the proposal, so I'm going to bring this in here. And so with Cumberland, we have on the table in the proposal that there would be a weekly PD for school nurses that would focus on school health issues, and there would also be access to their already established school health education curriculum. They also provide CPR training to all the faculty and staff at no cost, so that's a savings to us there for that particular training. Both proposals, the Danville Pediatric proposal and that one, provide oral hygiene education as well. So for the oral hygiene education, you have that on the table with both proposals. But an established curriculum and CPR training for free for teachers is with the Cumberland group. So one of the things on the on-site that I will say very quickly before we move to the next slide, if Teresa can go back, and the importance of it, I think there was a lot of conversation in the proposal last week that talked about weekends, it talked about summers, it talked about that sort of thing. So our students will still have access to the same care in Danville on the weekends and in the summer that they have currently. And if we went back, don't go back, but if we went back to that other slide, to where we have about 11% of our students that don't have a primary care physician, all those other students, they're seeing their primary care physician. They're having access to good medical care in the summer and on the weekends. So I don't think that we should think of a connection with summer health care or break health care or weekend health care in any way being connected on a decision we make about a school-based health clinic when our primary goal is wraparound services within our school. And so some things that we see same on both proposals. So strong record keeping and all federal guidelines. So both proposals follow all the legal requirements, state and federal, for record keeping. Parents will be involved in all decision and permission will be granted for all services. So it doesn't matter who the board decides to bring in. I will, and the directors in the central office will monitor this program very closely, and we will make sure and ensure that all parents are called before any services are rendered from a nurse practitioner, not necessarily school nurse, but the nurse practitioner, and then we have parents involved in all decisions because that's the way we do business at Danville schools. We are not ever going to exclude our parents from anything that we do. We also have access with both proposals to all first aid supplies for the clinics and dental supplies. So it's really nice, toothbrushes, toothpaste, and floss, for our Frisky program for them to have that available. So that's a really nice positive with both programs. Our school nurses have to use Infinite Campus. It wasn't something we actually talked about with both, but I know Cumberland already does that, and it's not, I don't think it's an issue with the other proposal, but that's an issue we have to do. So our nurses will use Infinite Campus to record their visits. And then both, like I said, both proposals provide the oral hygiene education as well. So next, really want to take a deep dive into those on-site services, since I do think that's the most important piece of wraparound services within schools. And so acute care, that's those sick visits from either a nurse practitioner, pediatrician, physician's assistant. That acute care for both is there in the schools. Our well checks are there, and I think yeah, I know I did that right. So that's actually a no. So the well checks for Scott and Goodwin will actually be in the office and not in our schools, so that would be a no on that one. So I need to go back and fix that one, I'm sorry. Immunizations, yes, for Cumberland in the schools and on site. Goodwin talked about that they could possibly consider doing flu shots, but not other immunizations with on school site. I know Ron can speak to, but we did have some struggles this year with getting the Hep A shots for a lot of our students, and for some parents it might have just been a transportation issue. Oral cleanings is yes through Cumberland, it's no through Scott and Goodwin. Oral screenings is a yes, oral cleanings is a no on Scott and Goodwin. Dental ceilings is a yes through Cumberland, it's a no on Scott and Goodwin. Teacher services, yes, Cumberland, and you can see no. Mental health services, yes, through both. So I think thinking about really looking at our teachers and attendance, I think that's an important piece to consider. And I do want to mention the oral cleanings and the dental sealants. We in Danville, for a fairly lengthy amount of time, we have been using UTA and those services to come into our 2 elementary schools to provide cleanings, screenings, and sealants. And so one thing to consider is if we do go with Scott and Goodwin clinics, are we stepping back in oral care because we will not be having cleanings and sealants for our students anymore, and we currently have that through the UK system. So again, I talked about that transportation is that barrier to off-site, and I do want to consider that if we went with a proposal to where some services or a good bit of services were pushed back into an off-site from the school system, then would we be depending on parents to come pick the students up and take them back to the actual office? You know, I don't think that Danville Schools wants to look at the cost or liability in transporting students to an off-site clinic. So those are just things to consider. So quickly here, we had the on-site services, and that's just a summary of the screen that I just showed you of those on-site services. So I think another piece, and this was in your proposal last month in March, is cost and cost savings. So technically, both proposals are amazing. We will have year one 4 employees either way we go. We'll have 2 nurses, we'll have 1 provider that's either a nurse practitioner, pediatrician, or physician assistant in the schools, and then for both, that's equal year one. But year two, we'll still see the same 4 employees with Scott and Goodwin, but under the Cumberland, because they're a nonprofit, at the end of each year, they pull all of their financial records and they present that to the Board of Education in one of our meetings, and they let us see if they have made any profit off of the insurance claims from private insurance and Medicaid. If they've made a profit, that goes back into the cost of our nurses the next year. And I think you'll probably remember that they stated that they have 1 school district out of the 13 that they pay 100% of the cost of nurses because they made enough money off of those claims, and 3 districts, they're paying 70% of nurses. So in any world, we will continue to have 50% of the nurses paid. Under Cumberland, there's a possibility, depending on what insurance and Medicaid claims look like, that we could actually have more of the cost covered for our school nurses. And so that's just the bottom record keeping where I talk about. I want to make a couple of other points. And I've already talked about that secondary care, weekends, summer, and holidays is going to happen for those students just like it always does. Like the current level of care that children are getting in Danville will continue. That's not going to change based on the decision that the board makes here with this. And another thing through Cumberland, and I've not actually talked with Scott and Goodwin, we could ask them, I know they're in the audience, is that they will also see non-school age siblings of our students. So mom heads into Tolliver to pick up her 9-year-old, and the 9-year-old has strep, the nurse practitioner's there, mom's picking the child up. The nurse practitioner can say, would you like me also, the 3-year-old's tagging along, would you also like us to check the 3-year-old for strep or examine? And if the parent says yes, then the non-school age sibling can also be seen in the Cumberland clinic at the school site. So then mom could have, you know, both of them have some medication as she goes back home and not have to go to a second location. An additional piece in thinking about that secondary care, well, what if a student's seen in the clinic at school and then they have an ER visit that night or over the weekend? So Cumberland has not done that in the past, but they are doing it this year, and Scott and Goodwin stated in their proposal that they would do this as well. They will send notes, both proposals, to the primary care physician at the end of the day. That way, if a child did end up in an ER, that primary care physician has information on what happened at school, and both will do that. So even though Scott and Goodwin has about 50% of our students as primary, as their primary care physician, the other percentages you saw, they said they would share with their peers that information in the community, and Cumberland also will be sending those notes out to primary care physicians as well. So we can see a continuation of services that the primary care physician would know what had happened at the school-based clinic. So that's, and so, you know, be glad to take questions at this point for any of the research I did in looking at that. You know, as superintendent, my role is to advise the board and in digging deeply with it and really thinking about Bardstown Independent, you know, what they went through, and thinking about the fact that one of the key pieces and one of the primary goals to wrap around services for a school-based health clinic is on-site. I would recommend Cumberland because the majority of the services are on-site in our schools on a daily basis, and considering the cost savings in the future of nurses as well. So with that, I'll take a question if you're curious about where I pulled any of the information. I did try to cite the sources throughout the proposal, and then I'll hush and let you have discussion and step back out of it.
So we can open the floor up for the board on questions, comments.
Well, I'm happy that we're gonna have two great proposals. I mean, when I remember when we went from one nurse to two, we thought we were really cooking. But, you know, I still have a strong connection to working locally. And I understand some of these things, so I have some questions for some of the doctors here. Locally, I mean, if you had that 11% and they couldn't get to the school, couldn't get to the doctor's office or to your office for a immunization, could it be administered at the school?
Sure. I mean, we get record from our insurance companies of who our patients are. And you may look around the community and see there aren't really many privately owned medical practices in this region, and the reason is because it's really hard to do. But well care checks and child checks are the foundation of good pediatric care, as well as, you know, financial success as an independent practice. If you look at our pay for performance from insurance rates, we're one of the highest ones in the region as far as getting well child checks in. And, you know, so yes, I mean, I like I say, I think some of those numbers are slightly different because, you know, it was run off Dr. Monday, who was Dr. Smith, when the paperwork was filled out at the beginning of the year. Right. And then all these, you know, she didn't get married till August 25th. And then you have a lot of these kids, like Dr. McDonald said, who hadn't had Hep A and realized, man, I haven't seen a doctor in 3 years. And so our numbers are really from the end of the year. We saw 4,000 patients a month, really, you know, August, September, October, November, December. Some of these high school students are like,
but you could provide some of those if you did have a student who couldn't make it, you know, to your office, you would be, I
think Danville Schools is 98% vaccinated, probably at least, and so they are making it to somewhere, and certainly, I think because of our large staff and so local, we probably can see more well child checks than any organization would. And so our goal would be to make sure that our patients are getting their well child checks. And if they sign up for us in school, that is the crux of good pediatric care. Okay. You know, whether Dr. Grace has to drive to their house, but you know, that's an important part of care.
Well, and then teacher services, that was, you know, kind of the part that Ephraim McDowell was going to do. And so we didn't really hear from them. I mean, it was, so that's kind of a gray area still because they're not here to ask, like whether, you know, if a teacher came in sick, like whether they could get a strep squab at school or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know you all used to treat adults, but you're not doing it anymore. But I mean, we have one of our providers who's an adult provider as well. Okay. And so that, you know, and that provider has done lots of her kind of research and as a nurse practitioner in school health types of things. And so she might be able to do that as well. But obviously we also have Ephraim, which is a huge medical organization. Well, it's just, I mean, I have to say, I mean, I'm again happy that we have two things, and I know, and I thank Dr. McDonald for this proposal, but I still feel like I've been bombarded by the community with, people are nervous about this any way you go. You know, who sees their kids? Like, everybody's so protective. And I talked to one mother today, and she came up and she was asking, because she saw this was coming up, and she said, my child doesn't even go to Danville Pediatrics, but I know them, and I know they do a good job. And I think there's a lot of apprehension about this, and I think there is a trusted in the community, and seeing that the dollars are relatively similar as far as forward, I still feel strongly about going with the local provider. And that's what people have come to me and, you know, really strongly said. But, so as my board member representing them, I just have to also present
I'm looking at the transportation issue because you do have parents or guardians or foster parents who may have a problem with transportation, getting the kids from the school or from their homes to a facility to take care of them. and then their percent just fanned out.
But this is gonna have an in-school facility where the doctors, you'd actually have a doctor or a physician's assistant coming to the school.
Yeah, they're gonna be there.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna be there on a regular basis, so that's where the Cumberland really shine, in my opinion. They're already there. And they don't have to be transported to
No,
the facility.
but but Danville Pediatrics is also going to be in the schools.
I understand.
It's,
I hear what you're
okay.
saying.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
Make sure we guarantee that always happens though, because, you know, still being Danville Peds, they're gonna be really, really busy. I'm wondering, if, you know, if they get slammed in their office, are they still gonna be able to provide somebody here at
that's
all
okay.
times?
Yeah, ask.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here tonight, right?
So-
I was here last week. I've got 8 providers in our office. I mean, we can handle being slammed. I mean, nobody else can. The other thing is, I'm looking at, you know, we're gonna build a relationship moving forward. If we can bring in more providers, that's awesome for this community, that's awesome for Danville Peds. Nobody's gonna put in 2 providers in the school if it's needed, other than Danville Peds. I mean, we can bring in what is needed as we've done for 42 years.
And so my question is I agree, I mean, that sounds wonderful, but we're also looking at those other pieces. So we're also looking at the oral cleanings, we're looking at the sealants, we're looking at immunization. So those are the pieces that yes, I completely believe everything you're saying, that if we are slammed with the acute care piece, which is the top line, that you could send extra providers. I'm worried about some of these other pieces down the line. And even though we did talk about Ephraim McDowell providing teacher services, I've not heard anything from the proposal that says that our teachers can be treated on-site in our school clinic that we would have, and reducing teacher attendance increasing teacher attendance, reducing teachers going home, and the number of substitutes we have is huge. And that's a huge financial piece for us as well. We spend a considerable amount of money on substitutes every year.
Can I give you my opinion? This is a tough. I have some thoughts I'd like to share with the board. We made a motion, matter of fact, I made it, that the health plan based on services provided and financial cost to the budget. Those are our 2 criteria. But I realize, Laura, you are correct. We live in this community and we care about this community. But at the same time, as board members, we are responsible to try to get the best services for the best cost. And whoever that is, that's who should get it. And we can't have the relationships. I think relationships are important. Matter of fact, when I think about Scott and Goodman, and I'm not being comical, I mean, that's Mount Rushmore. Those guys were great with my children, and I saw what they did with KSD children. They were outstanding. And if these new gentlemen, Mr. Wigglesmith, I told him the other night that he did an excellent presentation, and he did. But you folks didn't see, unfortunately, I wish you would have seen it, the week before, when the other lady was here. Wow, she gave an excellent presentation also, multimedia like you did. So for us, it puts us in a hard spot, you know, which one do we pick? I tend to think right now, I'm leaning towards Cumberland. I have to be straight up on it. If you look at services, Cumberland on page 7 is 8 out of 8 items. Scott Goodwin's 4 out of 8. Okay? I believe on-site is better. I'm concerned what Mr. Wall said is exactly right. If we, I haven't been around in a while, but I believe the rule's still there that if you transport somebody outside the schoolhouse and it's not their family, you got to put them on a school bus. So you're looking at least an hour. You can't pay a bus driver less than an hour, so they got to go sit if they're going out somewhere. So that cost has to be worked in there.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
get that, but I'm confused about that point.
So services provided, transportation, The other thing that hits me is these local doctors are excellent, but the other doctors all have proven success. The success is there in 13 other school systems. It's already there. Would I be, I believe that you can do it, but I know that they already have very successfully. So you can see it puts us in a difficult position. The other thing that concerns me that I didn't know until Tammy said this evening, why would the Bardstown pediatrician pull out because they weren't making money? Now, that might be totally different in Danville, I understand that. But as I analyze it, that concerns me a little bit. So I'm tending right now to lean towards Cumberland. A couple other thoughts. I wanted to state again, Mr. Wigglesworth's presentation last week was excellent. I just wish you could have seen that lady. She did a stand-up the month before. She was very, very impressive also, so it's difficult. That's about all I have. I do think that this board is absolutely focused on helping the children of this school system. And we want the best services for the best cost. Thank you.
I'd like to clarify with Dr. Scott, the transportation thing, or Dr. Wigglesworth or Dr. Scott, because I think maybe I have it wrong in my head, but I thought there was going to be the four nurses, and then there would be one person for the Danville schools, either a PA or RN or a doctor in our schools at all times, the same as Cumberland. It's not like every time we needed one of you guys or gals, we would have to drive over. Is that correct? Or am I, okay.
And we can do checkups, like I said, in the school. Difference is I want parents there.
Okay.
I just don't think that that's, in our opinion, that doesn't meet our standard of care to do a checkup without a parent present. And so, in the transportation, I'm not going to transport them from school. I'm going to get them after hours. I'm going to get them in the summer when they come to do STEAM. I'm going to try and do those types of things. But my sticking point is, child checks are also a part of family care. And so unless it's extreme circumstances, I just don't think checkups should be done without a parent there. And so,
but that could be done with a parent there in our building.
They can come here, absolutely.
Right.
But we can also bring them to the school as well.
Yeah, and so I think my piece is looking at the on-site services. So outside of even just discussing the well checks. So I'd even in my first meeting with Matt Graves had said, we can back out of the well child checks, encourage them to go to the pediatrician for those, and only do those in those cases of that very small percentage, the 11%, that are asking for it on site. And Cumberland also mentioned that they would back out of any billing if a parent didn't realize and went into their primary care physician. But these other pieces are very important: immunizations, oral cleanings, dental sealants, and teacher services. And so those pieces are not provided through Scott and Goodwin, which is one thing that leaned me towards, recommending Cumberland, because we have these other pieces as well. And I don't want to move back in any area. I know we're moving forward by leaps and bounds by adding the acute care and these other pieces, but we're going to go back with dental cleanings and sealants because we currently have that. In fact, a couple of months ago at Tolliver, we had, Ron, do you have the exact? We had 88 students, and then we had some more at Hogsett that took advantage of screening, sealants, and cleanings. And so that's in existence for Danville. And as you notice, it was 88 out of 600 students. So I'm sure all of those others were headed to their local dentist with their parents to have that service. So we had 88 that felt like this was the option that they chose. And so we would go backwards in dental care under that particular plan, which is one of the big reasons. And then, of course, teacher services, immunizations as well.
Dr. Scott, did you have some?
I'd like to call your attention. Cumberland said that they really weren't that interested in establishing a clinic there, etc. And yet we talk about the women's care. I wonder how how big a percentage of the Danville school system children use Danville Women's Care. I think it'd be rather small. Number two, most of their providers are family practice oriented instead of pediatric, if you look through their list. Number three, Danville Pediatrics would certainly have appreciated an invitation to come to the first presentation. We heard about it through the newspaper that it was taking place. I wonder why that had to be the case, that no one sought to say, hey, is there another plan available?
Yeah. So definitely it's all good questions. Appreciate you asking them. And Ron may have to help me with historical knowledge, but I do believe under a couple of prior superintendents, they did reach out to Ephraim McDowell and some local entities. I'm not saying it's Danville Pediatrics, I don't know. And so who was that? Ron, one of the, I think it was Bull County and Danville Independent tried to go together.
Had done some legwork for over the last 9 years, trying to implement some type of in-school clinic service. I think, and had to know about it. And so when I saw this opportunity, the director, Brent Blevins, is the one who brought it to my attention. I thought this was a great opportunity for us to have an in-school wraparound care clinic.
And absolutely, I understand that our students are not using the women's care clinic. I think that I was just trying to make the point that I've heard a lot about local investment in the proposal, and I did want to make the point that both proposals have local investment in our community, whether it's tax dollars, whether it's employing Danville citizens, whether it's giving back to our school system through providing someone at our football games, or whether it is providing scholarships for high school. That was the only point of that slide. Absolutely, I know that none of our students go to the women's clinic.
Well, I mean, the fact that over 50% of our students do have Danville Pediatrics, I mean, I think it's providing I mean, I kind of bought into what they presented last week. You know, the whole child and the whole, you know, your health care is not just going to the Walgreens clinic, you know, and it's the whole child. And the fact that our children could get to see licensed pediatricians, to me, is huge. Instead of, I asked the Cumberland doctors, or the Cumberland lady, who I thought was really nice, I said, you know, do you have a doctor on call? And she said, yeah, they're on call someplace else. These people could actually see a doctor. And I just think that it's Danville. And that's what, you know, I know I get
that's such an amazing point. I would like to ask Josh a question, if you don't mind, Dr. Wigglesworth. So when I had my second meeting with Danville Pediatrics. My first one, you were not present, Matt Grace was present. And then the second one, we talked about who would actually be present in the school. And you made the comment that we would start with the pediatricians, but that possibly we would move to a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant as time went on. And so if that's the case, I think that needs to be out on the table as well. Will we actually have a pediatrician full-time moving forward, or will we move to the nurse practitioner, which was what was proposed to Ron and I in one of our on-site meetings?
It's the only organization that's kind of a pediatrician on site. We have 5 pediatricians overseeing 2 nurse practitioners that will be in school, not one pediatrician overseeing 13 school districts worth of nurse practitioners. So, you know, when my nurse practitioner has a question, she sits right here next to me in the office, and so she says, Dr. Wigglesworth, I have a question, not an hour and a half away with 13 different nurse practitioners calling one pediatrician. So
my concern is that 11% of people that don't have transportation.
Well, they'd be treated in the schools. He was just saying they'd be treated in the schools. My thing is, I know Bardstown had a bad thing, but they're not Danville. They may do things completely. I say we have a local group willing to do this. We give the local group, I mean, we can work on, maybe separate out the dental if we need to work on that part of our proposal. But as far as physicians and nurses and everything in our school, we should try and go local first. And, you know, if 2 years down the road or 3 years, whatever our contract is, things change, then there's another great option on the table. But I don't know.
Can't separate out though. Cannot separate out. Separate the overall.
We can't approve any. I mean, we don't have a contract written. I mean, if we needed to say that we need to work on that portion of it and pull the dental out, maybe we do that in order to have the, you know, physician part. But I just say we have to try. I mean, try local. And I mean, I think it's the best for our kids. I think So that's for, what?
If we go ahead, can we not still keep UK for them?
I mean, you could probably do both.
Do both.
Possibly.
I don't see the idea that UK dental would be totally out. It's gonna be a necessary thing to do. I know Dr. Johnson's not here. But the dental is a big deal. I mean, because as you know, most people, the last thing they want to go to is the dentist. And when you have a captive audience, the kids that, and I know there's probably more than 88 kids at Tolliver that needed more dental care. I mean, it's just a reality. So it does concern me that the dental component's pretty important. And it's definitely something that I think, as myself, that needs to be a component that we know what we're going to be doing with. So I think that we can't guess on it. We need to make sure that we know that if it's, Danville Pediatric Dentistry is going to do all that, I got to make sure, as me personally dealing, I feel like these kids are all my kids. And I want to make sure that my kids are going to have that service provided, and it's not going to be a hit or a miss. I hope that we can figure out a way, because it is important that our teachers know, and and Dr. McDonald's right, it may be just allergies, but again, you may not be able to get a doctor's appointment for 2 days. So the choice is, do I go to school feeling miserable, or do I stay home? And then, which of course the district incurs a cost, because then we have to bring in a sub. So I don't know how that component could possibly be worked out with the nurses that would be at the clinics. That's pretty important to have our staff teaching the kids as many days as possible, because that consistency is really important. Now, one thing I was pretty happy with, and I'm pretty happy with everything, and the key is that the mental health services, and I know that Ephraim can provide that. And I realized starting with you guys as they start up, which is what it would be, is that there are going to have to be some things worked out, and they're going to be new to you, they would be new to us. So I just think that we need, and I know probably immunizations, we probably are 96, 98%, but we are fighting, with this recent measles and the Hep A and all these things. Obviously, we're missing kids and even adults, and all that matters. So, 92%.
I wish Cumberland was here to ask that question, because I was talking to somebody who works at Center, and she was saying the incredible costs those refrigerators cost to put your, they have to, there's all the regulations where you have to sign your things out and your immunization things. Are we going to have one of those in every school?
Yeah, it was my understanding that they're fully stocked clinics.
Okay. Well, it's just they're not here. But, I feel like I'd like to still learn more, I guess figure out the dental part of it. But as far as the physician part, I would like to go to Danville Pediatrics. And I don't know how we even do that tonight, because we don't have a letter of intent or anything. But, so that, this person, and I can make a motion to that effect. But, I don't know what it would be, because we don't have the letter of intent. But.
And also, I just want to ask and see about the possibilities. Bergen Schools is pretty special to me. My wife taught there for 20 years, and it's a nice, successful school system, which obviously sees that they feel like they have a need for care. And I know that Ephraim is of course, in Mercer County heavily, and I think that that's an important relationship that would be, me personally, important, that if this kind of program can be worked out with Bergen. And I don't know.
Well, our focus is really on Danville schools right now. I mean, we want to create a system that's going to work for that. But I would venture to say that this will expand within the county. And that would be our focus initially, because ultimately, we got to make sure we're taking care of our patients now burden. I mean, we see a lot of those patients, and we do so in conjunction with Dr. Johnson, who works for Ephraim, who's a pediatrician in Harrisburg. And so, I mean, essentially, we were given, a few weeks to create a fairly all-encompassing health plan. And I would say that this is pretty amazing. And I think it just shows the fact that you want to sit down at the table with us, we're going to make it work. And I mean, we can make it work because we're just right over there. And so, if you don't like the color of the socks I wear to the clinic, I can switch them, and so we'll make the system work, I think we've proven that in this community. I know other people have proven it elsewhere, but, if you ask the teachers who they want providing their care, they're going to say, I don't care about my care, I care about my child's care. And Danville Pediatrics probably provides care for the vast majority of teachers in the school district.
Any other discussion or questions? Well, I'm just going to make a comment. I don't feel like that I'm ready to make a decision at this point. Reason being is I'd like us to be exploring a more definite path on the dental care.
Yes.
And I think that's as important as the overall care for our kids. But I would like to set the deadline on the decision, because we have to get it made.
Yes.
Our next official school board meeting is May what's the work session? 13th?
Probably gonna be on a Tuesday, May 14th.
Yeah.
Probably May 14th. And the regular meeting's gonna be the 20th. All right.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
I'd also like to hear from Ephraim McDowell, how they will, going back to figure out, could they, or how to incorporate our teachers, if we could do that. But I know, I agree, I think, I would like to, hear more and, I'm fine with tabling it for the
So how does
for the 14th.
Anybody else have comment on that, or does anybody else want to make a decision?
We don't need to table it because there's been no motion. I think it's wise to set the date for next month. If you want to have a special called meeting.
Well, we can do it at the work session, which is the 14th.
Right.
That'd be fine.
So
we do need to make the decision, you're right.
Yeah.
Right, and I would like probably both groups to have a formal letter of intent or contract or something so that we are able to, because I talked to Vince, and Vince said that
we couldn't move forward.
we couldn't move forward really without,
Letter of intent?
without what would we need for you?
Well, when you get the final approval and you're ready to make a decision, there's gonna have to be a contract you're gonna.
Right.
So you do
Or
have.
a memorandum of understanding.
Yes, and so there is a contract. I sent it to Vince for review, not with Danville Peds yet,
Well,
but
that's,
Cumberland, just to let y'all know that
Right.
that
Yeah,
piece
they
is
have
there,
one.
so that means we need a contract from Scott and Goodwin, but Cumberland actually has a contract. I sent it to Vince a good while back for review, and then I think it's also attached in your e-meeting. So those pieces are all there for Cumberland. We're just really waiting on Scott and Goodwin.
Well, and then I think also too, the fact that Infinite Campus, which is how the schools live, and it provides to the KDE statistics and things that they want to know about when it comes to the overall health care of our kids. And so we got to make sure that the nurses will be able to accommodate. There will be trainings involved, because it's not exactly just jump in and press that button. I wish it was. But that's something else that you guys are going to need to consider and make sure that's part of that there would be training that, of course, would have to be provided for that. Let me ask you all, what questions do you have?
Well, I mean, I think none really. I guess if you want a letter of intent or a contract, we can work on that moving forward. Obviously, put an enormous amount of time and effort into this, and if there's things that you guys say, no, we would like this more, or adjust this aspect, as long as it doesn't compromise what we consider to be good pediatric care, we're not opposed to adjusting that. And so if there's a list of things that you guys feel like, oh, this needs to be done in the school, as long as we feel like this is good care, I think that's the part of having, you know, we're not bringing in a number 7. We're bringing in, or number 8, we're bringing in the Danville Pediatrics Clinic that served this community, and we're going to build it and make it fit this school system. You know, I mean, a number 7 may work in what other county, but we want to get our kids off fast food. So.
Okay, so I just want to just say again that we will make the decision May the 14th. And that also gives us, I don't know, 3 weeks at least, that any information that you all need or questions that need to be answered, also for Dr. McDonald to be able to do the same thing, and then trying to get together a contract so that, because we can't move until we know what that's going to be about.
Right.
So
3 weeks.
And really do appreciate you all being here, and thank you. So if there's anything else that you all want to ask at this point.
I think, Mr. Ball, I would encourage you, I'm confused about your 11% and transportation. Because someone's going to be in those schools to see that child who's been transported from point A to point B being in school. And you have a great deal of concern about transportation. I'm lost as to where the child has made it to school is going to be evaluated. And either they go back home, and I don't know who's going to do that transportation, or they're sick enough they need to be possibly ER or into the office for more evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Cumberland does it, I'm lost.
Well,
Their doctors are somewhere, and I don't know how many doctors they have. I looked through all those lists of those counties, and in fact, in the whole packet I had, I didn't find a single doctor's name on it. I found a lot of RN names and some LPNs. You're going to have a mile away the doctors here that provider that's seeing that child who's already made it to school building. And I think what Lori was really trying to push for is the child is already in school.
Yeah, I think there was confusion because I think at one point we thought maybe the doctor wouldn't be in the school, but the doctor or RN would be in the school. It's not they have to go to Danville Peds to be seen. They would be in the school.
I think the confusion is coming between the difference in those services.
Right.
So the acute care is exactly what we were just talking about. The doctors, the nurse practitioners, they're in the school, they're seeing the child's on the school bus. And I think what Mr. Ball's referring to when we talk about transportation are these other pieces, which is well check, which is immunization, which is oral cleanings, which is dental sealants. So I think the transportation gets into the other services, the wraparound services. We know with both proposals for the acute care, that's going to happen within the school building. But we don't know that the well check, the immunization, the oral cleanings, the dental sealants would happen within the building. So I'm just clarifying the difference in, I believe what I'm hearing Mr. Ball saying, transportation is for these other pieces below the acute care piece.
Yeah.
But they were saying for the well check and the immunizations, possibly for those 11% or whoever, that could be possibly done in the building, or that's...
No problem with well checks being done as long as the majority of the time the parent is present. You know, I mean, we have a parent who will not be present. We're not going to refuse the child care, but that's part of where the community comes in. We should never give up on the family structure. We shouldn't give up on the parent. And my job is not to judge the family. It's not to judge the parent. It's to help the parent and help the family and get them in here to help that child and get them to be a part of that child's care. And if I can't do that, then I'm probably not doing a good job being a pediatrician.
Some of the time doing a well check, the parent is not going to be there. If one of those entities is checking out the student for a well check, the parent's not going to be there. But I mean, be serious about it. they're not gonna be there in school with them, they need a well check.
Well, when I did school health, when I worked at the University of Kentucky, they did. I mean, that's what they brought in the families.
I'm
They
saying-
did ADHD management in the
Okay.
school, and they brought in the families. But it's also run by the University of Kentucky, you know, and so they kind of, that's their belief as well as it's our belief.
I'm saying, I hear what you're saying, but I'm just saying that there are gonna be occasions
Oh, sure.
when a well check gonna be done in the school facility, the parents not gonna be there. It might be something that need to be done right now on the spot, and check them out, and where's the parent? They may be at work.
Well, that'd be a sick visit. That's a sick visit. The acute care, yeah, we would
Yeah.
have to do that without the parent there.
Yeah, I understand.
Unless they want to come.
Yeah.
The well check
Yeah,
can be scheduled ahead of time.
yeah, okay.
And again, thank you all.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Could we, in setting that date, also include to invite local and the Cumberland folks to be at that meeting?
Sure.
Like the work session?
Sure.
Yes.
It would definitely be a good idea.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, I agree with
I
that.
think that's great. So, okay, any other discussion on that? Okay. So now, unfortunately, Mr. Matt had to wait. We're now at age, which is the purchase of, we need an order of approval to purchase some HVAC equipment. So Christie? So I would like to have a motion on that, please.
I make the motion of the approval for the purchase order of 3 HVAC units for John W. Bay Middle School at the cost of $94,283.
Second.
And we have a second, so let's have Ms. Denny give us some discussion.
The purchase of the actual units are carrier units. They are, they have a retrofit that will go right where the present units are. The present units are carrier units. And the district is purchasing these outside of the contract because of the savings in sales tax, as well as the ability to hopefully get them ordered a bit quicker because we're on such a time constraint.
Well, by the fact you're using the same vendor carrier, that would save two in it.
Yeah, that's not the actual vendor, that's the manufacturer.
I mean, manufacturer,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yes, it should. And in fact, I did a little bit more research today just because there were some questions about whether or not what I sent you, that we would be able to actually purchase through that company. It's the Coach Air Company, who is the Kentucky distributor for carrier units. So the little touch back to the softball project, we're purchasing the grandstand bleachers and press box outside the project, and Toadvine is the one who did a lot of research for us on that. They're on the state bid list, but they found the best price through a national cooperative purchasing company called Sourcewell, who is actually the National Joint Alliance something from years and years ago. It's NJ that many governmental agencies and school districts have used for years. It's national. So that's where we're getting our grandstands, the best price that Toadvine could find. And so I had to join that. Danville Schools joined that national co-op. And when I joined, I saw that Carrier was listed as a vendor.
Okay.
And so when I found Carrier listed as a vendor, kind of stuck with me, and I thought of that today. So I looked that up. They're there. I talked to the Carrier representative, listed through the co-op. And he assured me no matter how we purchase those units, they will honor the price on the co-op. And
Good show. Good show.
So there was question about if we don't get this taken care of today, that it delays. So
Well,
are we gonna be able to get these
7
puppies?
to 9 week lead time on the actual arrival of those units. We will go to bid April, there's a pre-bid meeting April the 30th, we'll open bids on May the 14th. And they'll actually be able to start with, some ductwork and things and some control work or whatever. So there's a little bit of leeway, but to be able to get it finished before school starts, we need to get them ordered.
Just a couple what I would call editorial comments. $94,283. I hope this will take care of it. Over the years, many years, Beda's had so many roofing problems, and HV and heat, wrong things in wrong parts and all. I hope that this really takes care of
This
it.
will take the multi-zone heating system away forever.
Wonderful.
So it will
Correct.
be controlled single zone, I guess you could say.
Okay.
There will be no longer 10 rooms on one thermostat
Okay, good show.
and 10 rooms with
Cause
non-working unit, 10 rooms with only air.
being a sub, I've been a substitute, I have endured those systems in that place.
And all new roof, by the way, on all parts. It's been the last 3 years.
Yeah,
And only one leak going on right now.
okay, good show.
When it rains only.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Put it in on purpose, right? Kudos.
So do we have any more discussion?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the purchase of the HVAC project at date?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I need a motion on the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve all consent agenda items as presented without discussion.
Second?
And we have a second. Seeing that the motion's been made, there won't be discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Do we have anybody on the public? That's good. So I would like to take a 10-minute recess so that we can recess, and then we'll be back.
Yes.
Don't go, don't.
Sure. There may be cupcakes.